took a picture of me while we were at the table without asking for my permission. And the only way I knew that is because he left the flash on, but he had the camera sitting like this. And I could tell, I don't think I was supposed to know. I think it was a black girl fetish. He was white, and he definitely told me a lot of times that he was not usually attracted to black women, but somehow, for some reason, he was attracted to me.
I would never ever be with someone that was saying, ordinarily I wouldn't go for you, but you're interesting. First of all, that makes me feel like I'm second best. And secondly, it's like, is that true? Or are you just trying to make me feel extra special? By like, ooh, you're the one black woman I would date. Like, no, run, run, run. Hello again, world of YouTube, finally back, and I've been trying to think what is the next video that I'm gonna do. I think someone had suggested, I forget the name of them, but there's a couple on YouTube that's pretty problematic right now, I think even more so than they had been, so I might look into them, but I'm also realizing I love the idea of just trying to find people's personal stories about relationship experiences and just listening to, commenting on, learning, and growing from those. So I unintentionally came across this video. I'm unfamiliar with this YouTuber. It's Bri the, I don't know if it said Womannequin. We'll find it in a second. And I started listening to it and was like, you know what? I just want to blind react. So I heard the first few minutes of it already, but the rest of it, I don't know how it's gonna go. But just thought it might be interesting to hear her story. I think it's coming from the perspective of someone who's single in her 30s, unhappily so. And my story is that I was 31 when I met my husband, 32 we got married. It was one of those very fast things, never planned on doing that, but God worked it out that way and we don't for a second regret it. But all that to say, I understand what it's like to be 30 and single, and I think that is becoming more common, but I don't think that's ever going to really be seen as like totally normal, totally cool in the public eye. So I can understand how it feels to be like, huh, someone out there probably thinks I'm a complete failure, you know, whatever. So not true. No one's a failure. Anyway, all right. So let's get started. The Womannequin. Yep.
What's up? I know I'm about to make some people mad with this video. And so be it. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm just telling my story, and hopefully I'm able to tell it in a way that is understandable and I'm getting my point across. So you might be wondering, what's the point of this video? I want to share my story, and I want to speak to those of you who are going through something similar, so you understand that you're not alone. Because bitch, I feel alone. In fact, that's the problem. That's the whole reason for this video, is boy do I feel alone. Okay, so I just thought that
always breaks my heart when I hear people just talk about how they're incredibly lonely, which is basically, I mean, there's a difference between being alone and being lonely, and it'll be interesting to see where she takes it, but I'm assuming the more lonely side of alone, you can be alone without being lonely. It does break my heart to hear that for people, because I wish everyone could reach a place of, while wanting a relationship, being secure and confident in being alone. But that takes a lot of work, takes a lot of learning and growth to get there, and I think a lot of people really have a hard time with that, especially as time goes on. And I can only imagine that COVID made all of this worse in every possible regard. So yeah, my heart goes out to her.
I would tell you some experiences I have had and am currently experiencing now, and let's talk about it. But before we get into that, definitely remember to like this video, subscribe, and ring the bell. Definitely leave a comment below. Like I said, you guys have been really good at helping me out with the algorithm, and I'm getting a lot of views and a lot of subs, and I really love it. I love talking to you guys in the comments. I'm gonna be completely upfront and say I can't get to everybody, especially if you're a person who left a really long, thoughtful comment. Do not think that I'm ignoring you. It's just sometimes I'm reading those comments while I'm sitting at the bar, and I'm just not completely, you don't want me to answer right then. You want my complete full
I have a hard time focusing even in restaurants sometimes when it's all loud around. Like, I could not possibly respond well to a comment at a bar.
Divided attention, and I want to give it to you, so just give me a sec. I hope that I get to it soon. Anyway, so there's a lot of things that have happened recently for me to talk about the video that I am currently talking about. And I don't want this to be a super long video, but just, it's a combination of rejection mixed with loneliness, mixed with being unemployed for 4 months, mixed with being single for 4 years, mixed with taking stock of where I've been and where I'm going. Yeah. First off, I would like to say that I am a person who thinks.
So I'm just going to pause it real quick. I think it's very healthy. Obviously, we don't really want to become self-obsessed. So I can't speak yet again. Self-obsessed or self-absorbed, but I do think it's healthy at times to take stock of our life and ask ourselves, am I happy with where I'm at, or do I want to be in a different place? Do I want to grow in these areas? Do I want to change these areas? Is this going well? Does this seem to be an ongoing problem? I think it's very healthy, so it's great that she's doing that.
About how I'm single a lot. I think about it all the time. And I know how I feel about it. I don't like it. It's funny because I'm 32. I was talking to another one of my 30-something-year-old friends. She's a little older than me. And I said something about when I have kids. And she was like, you want kids? And I realized in that moment it was because she thought that since I was in my 30s and not dating anyone and hadn't been dating anyone the 4 years that she had known me, that just kids just weren't on my radar. And I was like, yeah, I want kids. I don't know if I'm going to be able to carry them by the time that they're available to me, but that I would like to have kids, which brings me back to like.
And that's so hard. I've known of multiple women who were nearing 50 or at 50 who had always wanted to be married and have kids, and just either they were never able to be married, or I know of someone who is likely going to be getting married, but she's 47 and he's 12 years older. And she had said that the idea of having kids, she really wanted to try to have kids, but she's kind of reached a point of recognizing if they do get married, they're not going to try to prevent it, but she's just content, or going to work towards being content with whatever happens. But I can only imagine how painful that is for people who see the years go by, who really wanted to be married, and specifically always wanted to be a parent, and just being, especially for women, being like, my body won't be able to even have that option soon. I imagine that's pretty devastating.
Like, why am I single? I was having another conversation with another one of my friends, and she said that she's been going on dates, but everybody that she's been going on dates with has been giving her the ick. It's funny because when she's on dates, she'll like text us like, oh, no, this isn't gonna work out. Or she'll send us things that they've sent her. And sometimes it's like petty. In fact, anytime you get the ick, it might be a little petty. In fact, I made a whole video that people did not watch. I don't know why people didn't watch it. I put a lot of work into that. I did research on that and everything.
Girlfriend is not bitter at all.
I have screenshots. I thought it was really funny. So check that out if it pleases you. We talk about the icks that people experience. And I'm going to tell you right now, that's not my problem. My problem is not.
Maybe we should check that video out, give her a little viewership.
I get the ick. My problem is I don't even get the date. I don't get there. And I'm going to explain what I mean. Because I'm sure the first thing that you probably thought when I said that was, but you're so pretty. First off, thank you. I also think I'm pretty. But two things can be true. I guess I should tell you a little bit about my dating history.
When she first said that, it kind of surprised me, like, oh, okay, well, very confident in one's looks. And I do think she's very pretty. I was just thinking, I love that her lipstick matches her hair color. I don't think there's any shade of hair color that I could wear lipstick with where they would both match and look good on me. But for her, it works great. But as I think about it more, I mean, even my sister had said to me one time, I don't understand how someone, and I don't consider myself abnormally attractive by any means, especially not when I have no makeup on. But she said to me, like, I'm not sure how someone as sweet and pretty as you is still single. And looking back on that, I realized that's a very unfair statement, because we really can't really control whether or not we're meeting people, let alone people that we are able to marry. And so that's painful, because it's kind of like salt in the wound, because it's like, well, if I really am that pretty, I feel the same way. Like, what's wrong with me? I mean, granted, there's something to be said for trying to keep up with yourself to an extent, and you show people that you're not just going to be a couch potato every single day. But at the same time, it's like, we don't want to just reduce everyone down to, oh, if you seem somewhat likable and are moderately attractive, you should immediately be able to find someone. It's not that simple. So, yeah.
I have dated a total of 2 people in my adult life. I dated one for, I'm going to say 18 months and the other for maybe 8 months. So I have around 2 years total dating experience in my entire 32 years of life. And I got my first boyfriend when I was 25 years old. All of this did not feel like it was by choice.
I was 26 about to be 2017 when I had my first quote unquote official boyfriend. So I feel her.
Now, I'll get into that. I gotta stop looking at myself while I'm recording because I'm trying to make sure my hair looks great. And I'm also trying to make sure none of these fucking candles is lighting anything on fire back here. In one of these videos, everybody was like, oh my God, that candle's too close to those blinds. I'm so worried that they're gonna burn or catch on fire. They did. They definitely did. Thank you for telling me. I wish I had known that while it was happening. But that's what I keep looking at though. It's not out of vanity. Just trying to make sure ain't nothing catching on fire back here. Okay? Because
She's hilarious, men. She's hilarious.
light a bunch of candles for these things. If you're wondering why,
Pretty.
it's for the ambiance. Duh. But
good
just
ambiance.
a brief overview of my dating history. Because my dating history is so brief, like literally, my dating history is literally nothing. I feel like it would be more beneficial to let you know about the history of interest that I had, because that's more robust. I would say for every year of my life, I have had at least one major crush on somebody. There was maybe 1 year of my life where I didn't like anybody. It was like a couple years ago. I'm gonna say it was 2020. Yeah, it had to be 2020. I had just
When there was no one around to like.
broken up with my last boyfriend, and there was nobody. Bitch, there was nobody here. We were in quarantine. I wasn't going.
Yeah, there's nothing like a breakup in the middle of COVID. I went through my breakup early, like right as COVID was just on the cusp of like exploding. Like people, it existed, but people didn't know how much they were going to eventually be terrified of it yet. And then the breakup happened, and yeah, that was interesting, and it landed very differently on both of us, which I find very fascinating and somewhat telling, because it was very difficult, but also one of the best times of my life, honestly. And I'm not saying that in like a snarky way. It was a time that my relationship with God really grew. God has nothing to do with it. God is as present and wonderful as he could ever be. I had really just not pursued a relationship with him. And so in that time when the world was so still and I had no one to run to other than God, my relationship just flourished with him, and he provided me with so much peace while still I was going through a lot of turmoil. I had not cut off communication entirely at that point with this guy, and he was the one who'd broken up with me. So yeah, it was still messy, but yet I had a lot of really joyous, beautiful moments of just like being outside in nature with God throughout that year, the next year. But yeah, there's nothing like going through a breakup in the middle of a pandemic. It's an interesting experience.
Into work, but instead of starting from the beginning, I'm gonna actually start from the now. I have an interest in somebody. This person is unavailable. They showed interest in me last year. I'm not gonna lie, it was in a very weird way, and I was not prepared. I was trying to hook them up with my friend, and out of the blue, they showed interest in me instead. And before I could think about whether or not I was interested or not, they had a girlfriend. I don't know. And then nobody else really came along to take my interest away from that person. Prior to that person,
I'm confused if they got together with her friend that she was trying to hook them up with. But if you're trying to hook someone up with someone and they know that, and then they show you, hey, I actually kind of might like you, and then not long after that they're in a relationship, I read that as someone who's non-committal and rather indecisive and quickly jumps into relationships. Might be wrong, but if I'm not wrong, she did not lose out on anything by not getting to be with this person.
I liked someone else. This individual was Asian and told me that he was not interested in Black women. And I was just like, oh, well, there's nothing I can do about that. Prior to that, there was another person.
I absolutely hate that. I will say, ironically enough, my husband and I look very oddly similar. We joke that we're probably related. We are in the South, so Lord only knows. I did not ever expect that for myself. The person I dated before was not entirely white. I had no problem with that at all. I never have. I think mixed race relationships are beautiful. And just cool. I don't want to over stigmatize something, but I like it when people say, I'm not afraid to join to a culture that I might have zero experience with, because you are so worth it to me. I want to join into the culture that you're used to. I think that's really cool. So it makes me mad, honestly, when people say they're not into someone based on their given race, because it's like, well, but what if they are the most incredible human you're ever going to meet, and now you're just glossing over them because of their skin tone? Anyway.
person. I don't want to give too many details, honestly, because I know who's gonna watch this. To be honest, I could honestly spill my guts right here in front of you. But something in the back of my brain is saying, hold back just a little. But I did like someone else.
Probably smart.
I'm just gonna say that they were a bartender. They were also coupled. I liked them for maybe a year, 2 years, between it 1 and 2 years. And prior to that was that year where I liked nobody. And then prior to that, I don't know.
Did I miss it, or did she say she was attracted to someone who was already in a relationship? I hope I misunderstood that. If I did, I'm sorry. If I didn't, obviously we can't not see if someone looks attractive. We can't not notice if someone has a nice presence to them and is enjoyable to be around and seems gregarious, talented, driven, whatever. And it's natural to appreciate and respect that. But it's not okay. I don't want to say it's not natural, but in a way it's not natural, but it's not okay to allow ourselves to then create thoughts and fantasies of any kind about someone who either they themselves are taken or if we are taken. That's never acceptable. Just appreciating people for who they are and what they are, and then just stopping it there is what we have to do if we are in a relationship or if they are in a relationship.
I don't know if I'm going to leave this in here because my mother, nobody in my family knows this, but I'm bi and I like a girl. I like men 70%, women 30%. Most of my interest in women is physical. I've never dated a woman. Prior to that, I was in that relationship with
Is physical. So my understanding would be that she is then more so physically and emotionally attracted to men and more just sexually attracted to women. If that's the case, and that's interesting. I've always been fascinated by people who are bi. I'd like to understand that more.
with the guy that I wasn't really interested in. I'm not going to lie, I didn't really like him like that. I liked that he was intelligent. He was very handsome, but the chemistry was just not there. Prior to that, I was in a relationship with someone who used to choke me and throw me around the room. I didn't really like him either. I was with him because he was paying half my rent. It's so funny. I don't even know if I'm going to get into it.
Oy. I'm guessing she doesn't mean that in like a BDSM kind of way. If that's what BDSM is, I don't really know. If she was with someone who was abusing her, then first off, I'm extremely sorry that she went through that, and that is very traumatic and should not be glossed over. She should probably go to therapy for that if she hasn't. But also, my heart breaks when I hear people who stay in situations because of something like she said, something like he's paying my rent, because life is scary and can seem impossible to figure out what life would look like without this other person in it providing something that makes life seem possible to you in that moment. But when you are devaluing yourself and what you are worth by staying with someone simply because of that stability that they provide in some way, it's just destroying you. It's far better to say, okay, I'm going to leave this dynamic. There might be a lot of question marks, there might be a lot of scary moments and some pain up ahead, but at least I'm going to know that I'm showing myself the respect that I deserve, rather than clinging to this person who respects me not at all, but is at least paying my rent, you know?
Because I know a lot of people aren't into astrology. All I'm going to say is if you look up Venus in Virgo, that's me to a T. So having a partner who is financially stable is really important to me. It's actually a requirement. I think I could be with the most perfect person in the world, but if that fucker ain't got a job, you gotta go.
I don't think that should relate to a person's star sign. I think wanting to be with someone who's financially stable is just wise. It doesn't mean that you have to have a lot of money, but someone who knows how to handle money and not overspend and figure out what living within one's means to them, that's just wisdom.
It's not even about me being taken care of. It's not about somebody spending money on me, but I can't be somebody's sugar mama. And in my most recent relationship, that's what happened. And I made a video about that too, about the guy that I dated that was 7 years younger than me. And I said the biggest difference was not in our age, it was in our bank account. And that's because that's what's important to me. That's like a requirement. It's not even one of those things where it's like, I can work around it. I can't be with someone who is draining resources from me because, bitch, it's hard enough for me to figure shit out for myself. I can't be figuring shit out for the both of us. But
well, and really, if you're trying to find a marital partner without like going too far into psychoanalyzing everyone, you do need to be aware of how a person's actions can inform you of their psychology. If someone is not working to be fiscally reliable, responsible, dependable, then that tells you they don't care to set themselves up in such a way that makes them a reliable life partner for you, which then says they're either extremely immature, well, they are extremely immature, and possibly they don't know how to care for a partner well. So, psychology.
But yeah, so there was the guy that was choking me. Prior to him, I really liked this guy. I really thought he was great. He went to a school that was close to my house. I was like 24. You're gonna think this is really sad, but I liked him for a year, and he was also in a relationship, and I waited that shit out because that's how much I liked him. I waited it out because I thought that he was worth it. He also approached me very weird. I didn't know what was going on. I'm gonna say this because it's happened a few times where a guy will approach.
So, sorry, I don't know if you saw things popping up on your screen or not. I was trying to pause her video and then I pulled up something that one of my other videos. If I heard her correctly, she was saying that she was waiting basically for this person to become single so she could date them. And that is deeply concerning to me because like I said, we can't control who is or is not in our life. But if there is someone that you're attracted to, but they are taken, you are disrespecting their partner by hoping they break up so you can be with them. Now, of course, if someone, I'm not talking about for myself, I'm happily married and I don't ever want to entertain any thoughts I shouldn't, but if someone is single and there's someone in their orbit that they're like, I could be interested in them, but they are dating someone and I respect that, I understand that there is probably a level of recognizing, okay, like they are not available. I hope the best for them. I respect where they are in life. But if somehow or another they do end up not being together anymore, I may entertain that. I suppose there is a realm where that might not be crazy unhealthy, but I think you have to be really careful with that. And how she phrases waiting, like she really wanted this person to become single so she could date them. That's a devaluation of herself, and that's a devaluation of both of those parties, which is really worrisome to me because we have to enter relationships, leading any relationships, period, but especially relationships leading into marriage, with the end goal of how do I show you the utmost care and respect? How do I show you that you are incredibly valuable? And how do I also show myself the utmost care and respect and expect to only be treated as someone who is extremely valuable? That mindset that she had isn't doing that for anyone involved. Not trying to be mean, just my viewpoint.
Approach me in a way without verbalizing what's going on, and I'm too afraid to say something because I don't want to scare him off, but I end up scaring him off because I'm acting weird because he's acting weird. That's happened a couple of times. So in this situation, I like that guy. I was really only interested in him. He was always with his girlfriend and very much like a good man and stuff. And I was never a homewrecker. I never like was in there trying to talk to him or anything like that. Good. I just used to be around, and you can say it was pathetic because it was, but I used to just be around. And in my mind, I was like, I'm just gonna be here. I'm gonna be cool, and I'm gonna be clearly a fucking pick me because what the fuck else could I have been doing? That's not the first time that happened either. That's not the last time that happened either. But I said I was gonna make a video about being a pick me because I did it a lot. I did.
You are worth so much more than that. Even though I understand being single can feel very lonely, you're worth so much more than that.
Did it a whole lot. Anyway, but yeah, so I was just around, and what ended up happening was one day he just started messaging me and contacting me out of the blue, wanting to hang out and like coming over, and we would hang out, and I didn't know what was going on. I was like, did he break up with his girlfriend? I was like, what if him and his girlfriend aren't broken up, but they're like in a weird place? Or what if they're on a break? And I was so afraid to say anything to him because I thought that he was just not, I don't know, but I didn't say anything. What ended up happening was because we never talked about what we were, we ended up going to a party together. I danced with another guy at that party, and this guy that I had waited for a year for never talked to me again. And that's exactly what happened. Prior to that, I had a crush on a guy.
And that's what happens when lines get blurred and when our own self-consciousness takes over. So, I mean, on the one hand, like I've said 5,000 times already, I strongly disagree with her waiting around for this guy who's already taken. But if that wasn't in the picture, It does get really confusing, and I don't even know my stance fully on girls taking the initiative in starting a relationship with a guy. But it does get confusing when people are in the inevitable stage of, I can't quite tell what they are wanting or interested in, and I wish they would just outright ask me out on a date, but they haven't yet, and I don't know what they're thinking. That's annoying, and I do think that maybe it's good for especially girls to guys to kind of give a little time. But if a guy is consistently like saying, hey, do you want to hang out, or texting or whatnot, but not verbalizing I'm interested in you, I don't think there's anything wrong with just saying to them, just want to clarify, like, what are your intentions with this? My husband and I got married super fast, as I've said in the past. But I think we kind of sped up a lot of the times that some people take months figuring out. So we went out to eat. It wasn't, he didn't consider it an official date, but I could tell that he was kind of using it to gauge whether or not he might be interested in me. So then the next time we hung out, I was like, already thinking to myself, I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste his time. And so I literally upright said to him, just curious, like, what are you hoping for this hangout session to be? And he said, I would like for this to be a date. I'm not sure if you would like for it to be a date, but I'd like it to be a date. Obviously, not everyone's quite that blunt, but we had both come from pasts where it's like, we have no interest in question marks, vagueness, gray areas. Like, we just want to be direct and know exactly what's going on. And if it's not going to work, we will respectfully let each other know it's not going to work, but we're also not just going to be like, eh. So, hey, girls, I think it's totally okay to ask a guy, what are you aiming for here? And if he is vague and continues to be vague, move right along. You can do so much better than that, even if it feels like there's not a single man left in the world. There are.
For a very long time, for 10 years. I dated other guys in that span. I was a pick-me for another guy. So pretty much that's a lot of my background and what happened. So you might be wondering, how did that turn into me being single for 4 years? Does that mean like I wasn't going on dates or I wasn't active on the apps? So 2 of those years are kind of hard for me to count because I had COVID. So 2 things happened when I had COVID. First off, I gained a lot of weight from being sick. So currently I am 30 pounds down from the highest weight that I was when I had COVID. So
I mean, I can only see you from this area up, but you look absolutely gorgeous to me.
I've lost a lot of weight. I'm going to tell you right now, that did not matter. I've been heavier than that. I'm not saying it's not a factor. I personally have never experienced weight be a factor in attraction for me and another person. And I've been 175 pounds at my highest, and I've been 130 pounds at my lowest, and I've never seen it be an issue.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I do think I mean, speaking from as someone who has never been overweight, I don't want to simplify things. I don't want to minimize anyone's experiences. But I've definitely seen numerous women who are anywhere from just slightly curvy to quite overweight be in long-term relationships and marriages. So I can see where maybe to an extent it can be more difficult, but it doesn't inherently mean if you're overweight you won't be able to find a guy. There's plenty of guys out there that aren't going to judge you for that. But I know it sounds easier to say, harder to actually experience, but it's just what I've seen in life. So
Ever. Not to say that's not the case for other people. So my experience in real life is colored by a lot of things, because really what ultimately ended up happening was the type of guys that I used to be attracted to when I was younger started becoming attracted to me as I got older because I had grown into myself. Unfortunately, these men had not. I had done the work to grow as a person and the men had not. But the guys that I used to be attracted to, I kind of realized sucked. I wasn't able to have robust conversations with them. I didn't have any chemistry with them. And I think it's funny because a lot of the reason why I grew so much as a person was not because I wanted to. I'm gonna tell you something about me. I really like that.
I just want to pause. I do feel like there are, I mean, I think to an extent this was part of my past. I think there are men out there who know what a good woman, not perfect, but a good woman is, and seek out good women, but are not themselves good for those women in general. There are maybe aspects to their characters and their natures that seem really great from the outside, but their deepest core self is unhealthy, very, very unhealthy. I used to assume that only unhealthy men would be then seeking out unhealthy women, but I do think there are unhealthy, and vice versa, unhealthy men who seek out healthy women, knowing what they need to look for, but not actually putting themselves through the work of being the kind of man they need to be.
a lot of people really seem to like my personality and they think that I'm very relatable. And I'm going to tell you this, bitch. It's not because I wanted to be. It's because I had to be. If you saw my videos before, you would know that I was very lonely. I had no friends. And now you know that I was unchosen. I was not chosen by anyone. I'm just going to say it was like this. When I liked them, they didn't like me. When they liked me, I didn't like them. And it's just as simple as that. I'm trying to like preemptively respond to things that I know I'm going to get in the comments. Like people are going to say, your standards must be too high, or there must be something wrong with you, or you must be lying, or something like that. My standards are average for what they probably should be. For a long time, I thought my standards were too high. And you know why I thought my standards were too high? Because I have to feel attraction for someone in order for me to want to date them. And because I was a narcissist, I thought that every person that I was attracted to, also I used to be a narcissist, I thought that every person I was attracted to was the most beautiful thing walking when
I love that she offhandedly is like, I was a narcissist. I don't know anything about, well, I know very little about actual narcissism. I would imagine someone who can actually be diagnosed as like clinically narcissistic, I would imagine it's not something that you can used to be. And maybe she doesn't really mean it as like seriously. My guess, there's a bug. Sorry. My guess would be that she was inexperienced, immature, selfish, just like I was, even in my first relationship, and desperate, like she was saying, I think, very lonely, scared of being lonely, and just deeply, deeply wishing for that fairy tale happy ending that probably clouded her judgment and her perception of things, where she created a version of someone in front of her that wasn't real. I know all about that. I would assume it wasn't necessarily narcissism. It was just a lot of things that maybe could present as narcissism, but really was just inexperience, selfishness, immaturity, all those fun things.
I was interested in them. Looking back on some of those people now, first of all, my friends were quick to tell me he died. They were quick to say that, and I would be like, haters. But looking back on some of them, they're average looking men. I thought that I was shooting for the moon when really, I think I was within my range. I don't know, maybe I wasn't. But that's why for a long time I did think I was shallow. My standards now have definitely shifted, and they haven't shifted in a linear way. It's more like the different sliders have changed. Like I'm much more flexible on certain things and much more rigid on other things. That's how things have happened in terms of,
I mean, that's life and maturity. It's inherent, I think, to growing and learning.
dating. The last date I went on that I knew was definitely a date was 4 years ago at the beginning of the pandemic. It was
That
a
is
guy
the
from my
worst.
job.
I experienced that in my, like, before the person that I officially dated. It's like, is this a date? Is this not? Are they interested? Are they not? That's the worst. I hate that. Hate that.
And he took a picture of me while we were at the table without asking for my permission. And the only way I knew that is because he left the flash on. But he had the camera sitting like this, and I could tell. I don't think I was supposed to know. I think it was a black girl fetish. He was white, and he definitely told me a lot of times that he was not usually attracted to black women, but somehow, for some reason, he was attracted to me. I don't know how I felt about that. I don't want to be the first black girl.
No, I would never, ever be with someone that was saying, ordinarily I wouldn't go for you, but you're interesting because two things. First of all, that makes me feel like I'm second best, which I kind of did feel that. I very much felt that way in my past, even though it wasn't a racial thing. I still felt second best because of pseudo-similar comments. And secondly, it's like, is that true? Or are you just trying to make me feel extra special? By like, ooh, you're the one black woman I would date. Like, no, run, run, run.
Some non-black persons ever dated. I also don't want to date someone who has only dated black women if they're non-black. That definitely gives me the creeps. However, that was the last date that I had been on. Why did it not work out? It didn't work out for a couple of reasons. Namely, I ended up getting sick with COVID. He says that I ghosted him. I don't remember it that way. I remember really liking him and not feeling that reciprocal energy from him back. I don't know. But that was the last person that I dated that I knew that I dated.
Sorry, I shouldn't have said, yeah. Not an idiot, just very foolish. That's way better.
I guess I technically had a date last year. I'm trying to think of what I consider dates, because there are a lot of dates that I don't really consider date. What's a date? Because I technically had a date 2 nights ago, if I'm considering anytime somebody asked me out a date, but I didn't really consider it a date. And I told the person that I was with, I was like, because I knew the people who worked at the bar that we went to, and I was like, they're gonna think we're on a date. And he was like, and he didn't say anything. And I wasn't trying to fish for, is this a date? I didn't consider it a date because, first off, he told me he has a fiance. I was hanging out with him as a friend, okay, as a neighbor, because he's one of my neighbors, but he ended up saying some things that made me think that maybe he thought it was a date. Or
everybody makes different life choices, and I'm sure things are more complex than I might be aware of, but I do not understand why you would go out as a single woman with your neighbor who is a man and just go out and hang out, especially as neighbors and not like lifelong childhood friends. I don't get that. And I'd be even more concerned if she knew that he had a fiance prior to hanging out with him. I would have, again, immediately seen that as a red flag of like, what's happening right now? Why are we doing this? What would your fiance think? Now, maybe not everyone would agree with me on that, but to me, immediately seems kind of fishy.
Or would have been okay with it being a date, and it made me feel weird. However, the last time I went out with someone solo, and it was like most likely a date because they were definitively single, probably was that guy that I was talking about earlier who I was trying to hook up with my friend, that I said was weird because I was trying to hook him up with my friend, and then it was like he showed interest in me and I wasn't prepared for it. And in fact, I didn't think he was serious because he messaged me after we had all went out as a group, and I just thought he was drunk, and I was just like, this guy. But then he messaged me again a couple days later, and I was really uncomfortable with it because
I'm curious what he said, but also I'm very curious, like, if she so badly wants to be in a relationship and there was this single man, there must have been some reason that she was wanting to introduce him to a friend of hers rather than get to know him in that way. So I'm very curious about that dynamic, and maybe I'm not understanding something or reading too far into something. And then if she did go out with him one-on-one, yeah, anyway, I'm losing my train of thought, but it's just, I don't really quite understand how that all came to be.
because my friend had liked him, but then when I told her he had messaged me when he was drunk, she was really mad, and so she was like out of town, and I didn't really know. I was like, what is my obligation as a friend if a guy that my friend did not date but liked, had interest in, but they didn't date? I don't know, I felt weird about it. But then when we were on the date, the guy got like super drunk. Like, I don't even think he remembered any of the date. That's how drunk he got. But I was willing to overlook that. I still felt weird.
No, especially, I mean, I don't think anyone should ever get super drunk, period. That's just my opinion. But especially if that was the first date and someone getting super drunk on a first date, I mean, that just shows no boundaries. That shows lack of respect. That shows so many negative things. Like, that to me is a huge red flag, regardless of your view on drinking and getting drunk. And it is weird when you're interested in someone that your friend is interested in, or your friend's interested in someone, and then that person is not interested in your friend, but actually interested in you. I have not dealt with that. I don't know how best to handle it. But I would say if you like someone that your friend liked / thought they were going to date, and you're realizing instead you two might possibly be able to become a thing, I feel like the only real way to handle that is just to have a really honest, open conversation with your friend and see if you can both come to a conclusion where neither of you feels like you're losing completely in some way. I don't know. That might be one of those kind of no one really wins situations.
About my friend liking him because I hadn't gotten her a sign off on it. I didn't even tell her that we had went out again. I felt really uncomfortable with it, but I was like, if he's serious, then we can talk about it. Maybe he just got really drunk because he was nervous. He said he didn't drink that often, like before we even went out. We had 2 gin and
Someone who says they don't drink that often and then gets drunk on the first date is absolutely lying.
Onyx bitch, so clearly he doesn't drink that often. So I was willing to overlook it. He didn't touch me inappropriately or try anything weird with me. So I was willing to give it another shot, but he stopped talking to me forever after that. So I don't know. Maybe he felt, maybe he didn't like the way I handled it, or maybe he just didn't like me, which is what this video is about people not liking me. And I don't know what it is.
Easier to say than to do, because I am currently just about to start therapy to figure out how do I get past the letting go of question marks that plague you. So easier said than done, but I'm just gonna say, doesn't matter what his thoughts were or not. This man is a complete loser. Just cut the cord, whatever the phrase is, cut your losses. There we go, that's what I'm trying to say. Cut your losses. Know that you have not missed out on a blessed thing by not being with him. You are in such a better place by not being with him. That's all you need to know. I'll tell myself that as well.
I watched Beatrice Caruso's video on it. I watched a couple of videos on it, and I wanted to make this video because I specifically wanted to make this video for people who are interested in finding a partner, who've actively been looking for a partner, and they don't know what they're doing wrong. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. First off, I don't get approached in public by non-creepy people. That's number one. And I don't really go out in public. I mean, I'll say this. Okay, there are people who have shown interest in me that I would definitely say no to because of clear lack of compatibility with that person, or just like complete uninterest in terms of attraction on my side. I think like for me, it has to be like, am I attracted to this person? Yes or no? Could I become attracted to this person? Yes or no? Am I attracted to this person's personality? It's like this. If a person comes up to me cold, I have to be physically attracted to them first. If I get to know somebody over the course of some time, I can become attracted to them based on their personality. And then I'm willing to have that conversation.
I'm glad she's willing to do that, because it is absolutely true that attraction can grow. I mean, I agree that obviously you don't want to potentially spend the rest of your life with someone that you have zero physical attraction to, ideally. But expecting there needs to be fireworks, like on the first date or the first time y'all meet up, that's just, it can happen, but it's never a guarantee, and rarely does that ever last extremely long. So I think it's much better to go into dating being like, am I attracted immediately? And like she was saying, kind of whatever, not, I don't want to say whatever to that exactly, but rather than making that extremely important, just saying, do I see myself being attracted to this person long term? Do I see myself being safe and valued with this person long term? Those are the most important questions to ask, rather than are they hot? Oopsie daisies. I don't know what I'm doing. All of these screens keep popping up. There we go.
But number one, guys that I'm attracted to, why am I pulling up my pinky? Number one, guys that I'm attracted to just out in the wild are not attracted to me. If they are, they're not coming up and approaching me. This is where the problem comes in. Because on apps, I do not stand out. I'm aware, and it's fine. It's just the unfortunate circumstance. A picture that I posted on my IG a few days ago says something like, I hate being pretty in the mirror, but not pretty in pictures. And I'm like, yeah, that's how I am. In pictures, I look like a basic bitch. I don't stand out, and I'm aware. And it could be a situation where maybe I just gotta learn my angles. I got chubby cheeks, and chubby cheeks just don't photograph well.
I think your cheeks are adorable. Now, I don't know a ton about apps, but I will say, if you are looking for a life partner, I would hope that it was not crucial that your picture stand out as the most attractive picture on apps. Obviously, you don't want a terrible picture of yourself, but I highly doubt this beautiful woman is posting terrible photos of herself. So even if her photos would technically rank as considered average, any potential future forever people should have no problem with that. Because if a girl is working extremely hard to be the most beautiful person on the app with the most beautiful photo and the most beautiful background and the best outfit and the best pose and filters or whatever, that's not a forever person for you. That's someone who's deeply insecure, whether or not they recognize it, and someone who cares way more about how they look rather than being like, here is who I am at my core. What do you think about me at my core based on how I present myself? I mean, obviously you can't really know until you meet someone in real life, but from what I'm saying about myself, what are your thoughts on the core of me? That's the type of profile you need to be looking for a forever person. If you just want a hookup or, you know, a relationship that lasts a month, fine, go for the hottest people, but it shouldn't matter. And if it does, that's really sad.
cameras, it's all about the bone structure. That's why everybody's getting the fat taken out of their face with the buccal fat removal thing, because they want to look camera pretty. And I'm like, bitch, I'm trying to look real life pretty, okay? First of all, I like my cheeks. I think they're fine. I'm aware that they're chubby, okay? We can't all have super defined cheekbones, okay? First of all, if I didn't have no cheeks, where my dimples gonna go?
Exactly. I was gonna say,
I ain't got no cheeks for
she has dimples. I've always wanted dimples. I'm jealous of her dimples
to go in. Secondly, in terms of how I feel about my attractiveness, when I look in the mirror, I see a pretty bitch. So I don't know what everybody else is saying. It's gonna make me sound so arrogant, but I'm fine with my appearance. I've always been fine with my appearance. I don't know if that's just me because I have a moon in Leo. I'm just a very naturally confident person. It's really other people that make me feel ugly. I don't feel ugly in a vacuum, if I'm being completely honest. And it's not people telling me that I'm ugly. People don't say negative things about my appearance. It's more so being overlooked constantly.
She's registering people's responses as their view of her attractiveness. And I mean, perhaps sometimes that is the case, but it may not just be as simple as that. And I mean, I think she sees herself accurately in the mirror. I think she's very beautiful, and I'm glad that she feels confident in her looks. But I find it, because I mean, I don't, I mean, this is not meant to create a discussion. I don't see myself as being as attractive as her. But growing up, I also had similar thought processes of no one is pursuing me. They must not think I'm that pretty. And I don't think it's really quite like that. I mean, to an extent, maybe, especially if they're the wrong kind of person, then absolutely. But I think rather I would think there may be something more than that, maybe, that's keeping people from pursuing. And it could even be that she's in the wrong circle of people where she wants someone who's going to be able to be healthy and commit to forever, but the only people that she's kind of seeing or wanting to interact with online are actually real screwballs, or the people in real life are just not in a stage of committal, not mature enough, not wise enough, whatever it might be. It could be way more than just, yeah, they don't think you're pretty and that's why they're not interested.
And I'm going to tell you exactly why I think it is. I'm interested to see.
And I don't know her at all, but I don't know how she carries herself online or in person. If she, in her confidence in herself, actually comes off as very arrogant, overly confident, that can be a real turnoff. I'm not saying she does that, but that's always a chance. Even with the apps, people could try to present themselves as very confident and sure of themselves, but if you don't do it in an artistic, artful, but honest way, it can come off as braggadocious and obnoxious. And there's a chance, me not knowing anything about what her app looks like, if she's still on it, there's a chance maybe there's some of that too.
What the men in the comments are going to say after I say this next spiel that I'm going to say. So I know my strengths, and I'm going to tell you what they are. And you're going to agree, because if you're watching this video, I assume that means you watch my videos, or you've seen my videos before, or you've gotten this far. You clearly like something that I'm saying here. And this is my strength in talking, in the conversation and conversing. This is where I really shine in my one-on-one conversations with people. Even though this is a YouTube video, it might as well be a one-on-one conversation. And
let me pause. There is talking, doing well with public speaking, speaking in general, being confident when you yourself are the one speaking, and there's conversation. I'm not saying I don't think she's good at conversation. She may be great at conversation, but conversation is an art form that I don't think anyone will ever actually be able to fully learn before they die. There is so much that goes into actually being an excellent conversationalist, because it's not just being able to share words back and forth. The best conversations, especially if you're trying to get to know someone to date them, are the conversations where you are, without making it super obvious, working very hard to really see who they really are and help them feel seen by you, help them feel like they are interesting to you by how you are conversing with them. So she may be excellent at conversation, but I personally would not say someone's ability to present really well on a YouTube video is an indication of them being good at conversation, because she might be great at talking about herself, but not great at actually allowing another person to be seen in the conversation. She might be excellent at that. I don't know. There's a big difference.
And I'm aware that the dog is having a nightmare. Sounds like a pig being drowned in a bucket of water. But I'm aware that I'm well spoken, okay? Because that's who I've learned to be, okay? I'm well versed in a variety of topics. I can talk about almost anything. And I'm also aware of if I'm not versed on something, I still know how to carry a conversation by asking questions and really probing into the other person's knowledge of the conversation, okay? So I don't have issues really when
That's excellent. I too love just learning, even if it's something that I'm never going to use for the rest of my life. I remember one time I was around a bunch of guys with tattoos, and I don't even know if I'll ever get a tattoo, but I could tell that there's a story behind it. So I started asking them questions about the design, the color, different things, and they just lit up. You could tell they were so excited to talk about their tattoos. And that's an example of I don't have to have personal experience or knowledge to be able to have an engaging conversation that makes you feel seen and respected and understood. So I love that she's willing to ask questions. Yeah, that's really good. Even if you feel well versed in a part of a conversation, just always being willing to learn more is so important.
I'm on the date, except for the guy that he was blackout drunk. He doesn't remember having any conversation with me. And that other guy that I was on a date with, that's a whole messy mess, okay? This man just got engaged and texted me saying that he wanted to celebrate his engagement by going to a strip club with me. Okay. Anyway, this is the type of men I attract.
Yeah. Again, everyone's going to have different opinions, but I do not trust a man who wants to go to a strip club, period, let alone a man who wants to go to a strip club before he gets married. I know that that is a common thing to do. I personally would say that man's fiance needs to not be married to him if they're married now. And this girl absolutely has not missed out on a single thing with this man not being in her life.
I'm aware that those are my strengths, right? And you have to know your strengths. You got to know what are you good at talking about. I'm a person who I think I can hold a conversation so long as it's not about a pop culture topic or about music or about cars. It's got to be something more philosophical in nature, more broad, okay? Like, I can't tell you anything about exactly anything, but I'm just gonna have to take my word for it. It was part of the reason why people used to always call me weird. And
we'll see where she goes with that. It can be very difficult to know how to carry any kind of conversation on a topic that you know very little about. But like with the tattoos, like I said, I know next to nothing about tattoos. I am of the opinion that it shouldn't matter what the topic is. If you can tell someone really enjoys it and cares about it, find ways to authentically be curious about it. Doesn't matter if you didn't ever think you were interested in it. Doesn't matter if you leave the conversation being like, I still really don't care that much about cars, but it was nice to see their level of interest, their level of enjoyment in it. It's invaluable in any kind of romantic relationship that your partner knows whether or not you share all the exact same interests and hobbies and skills, that you appreciate their interests and hobbies and skills, that you want to hear from them about it, that you get excited about it for them. That's really vital. And I think if someone enters the dating sphere saying, excuse me, because I think she was saying she doesn't really have much to say about cars. If someone enters the dating sphere and is like, oh, I couldn't date a guy who just loves cars because I don't care about cars. I don't know anything about cars. I take my cars to the mechanic. They figure it all out. I don't know. I don't care. I can understand that because that's the easier way to go about things. But at the same time, I think that's really unfair because you don't have to learn how a car works to learn how to be enjoyable in conversation with someone who does know how cars work. And you don't have to know how a car works to be able to support this person in their love of cars. I think that's a really important mindset to have when trying to find someone, is like, whether or not we have all the exact same things that line up perfectly, I know how to see you well regardless and make you know that you are very important regardless. So stop rambling, sorry.
Something that I was always made fun of for until I was like maybe 26 years old. And now suddenly it's attractive. But you know who didn't appreciate and value? All those fuckers that turned me down before. Now they're all somebody's baby daddy. You know who didn't learn how to better converse with people, to make sure that when you're talking to people, you're fully alert and you're listening and you're giving the proper responses at the right time? Who didn't learn how to be patient with people when maybe they say the wrong thing and trying to laugh off things that might have sounded offensive and still giving that person a shot because maybe they just said the wrong thing. Or maybe they're nervous. Yeah, they didn't. They certainly didn't. They stayed the same because apparently what they were doing worked for them. Because apparently other females like that stuff. You know what?
I'm sorry to hear that she was surrounded by guys who just didn't know how to value her and her abilities. Like I was saying, vice versa. If you're with someone who's just very heady and very philosophical and knowledgeable, and that's not your strength, because that's not really my strength, I feel like I'm always searching for the singular brain cell that's very elusive. Doesn't mean that I can't tap into their knowledge banks and say, what are you most interested in? Tell me more about that. How did you get interested in that? Like, how are you using that? What are things that have surprised you? What are things that you've learned through it? How have you been able to use that in your every... I mean, there's an endless amount of learning we can do about topics we have no experience with and no prior interest in. There was something else that oh, yeah. I'm still learning the art of letting things go that might be slightly offensive. I do think that there's a skill in that for sure. But at the same time, if someone says something that does rub you as offensive, and I would assume maybe she's had like some racial insensitivities, I think there really needs to be a balance between laughing something off and assuming the best, quote unquote, versus not glossing over something that might actually turn into a real issue later on. I don't think it's ever wrong. Obviously, and I'm learning this, like I said, you don't want to be a stickler and call someone out every single time they say something you don't love. But it's also not wrong to gently, maybe on a different day at a different time, kind of circle back and just clarify a person's meaning. Because you certainly don't want to get into a habit of excusing and being like, oh, they were just nervous. They had had a little too much to drink. That's not what they meant. They really meant that. And then years later, all of a sudden you realize, oh, no, actually, they did mean those offensive things. So kind of a balance.
I definitely don't stand out on apps where I have to take my own pictures where I don't know my angles. I'm doing like a struggle smile in all of my pictures or having to say something funny or clever. Guys always complain about having to go back and forth with people 4 days before you actually meet them in person. I don't know why I said 4 days, probably because I just watched that Beatrice Caruso video again. I'm gonna link it below. And I'm like, yeah, same. I don't like that shit either. I'm actually a really bad texter. I'm gonna tell you the last time I talked to a guy on an app. It was on Hinge because people say, Hinge, that's the one that you really want to go to. It was on Hinge. He was Asian because that's relevant. Also, race is really relevant for me as a black woman. Oof, it's a struggle out here. It's a struggle between trying to figure out who's got a fetish, finding people to take you seriously. And I have a very weird relationship with black men where I don't know if I'm even going to go into it in this video. So I was on Hinge and I'm stupid. This is my fault. I was being a fucking pick-me again. I didn't realize it until I thought about it after this thing happened. On Hinge, for the type of relationship you're looking for, you could put long-term, open to short. And I was like, I'll put that because I'm open-minded. Who knows? And then the first thing that this guy messages me is, how short-term? And I'm like, I didn't completely write him off immediately as I should have. Instead, what I did was I like shit texted him for a week. By that, he would send me a message and then I would take a day to respond. And then I would apologize for taking so long to respond. And then he'd be like, oh, it's fine. And then I would take another 2 days to respond. I'm really bad at it. I'm really bad. And I think that the truth was probably that the fact that dating on the apps is already really hard and goes against my nature because I can't really shine on there. Having to come up with something clever and funny to write, coupled with the fact that this man had literally opened. This is the first thing he said to me was, how short term? And I never should have replied to that.
Agreed.
Or if that's, I don't know, maybe I should have. You see how I'm confused? I don't know.
No. Any indication of someone in any way minimizing your value, especially early on, where it's pretty obvious where they're coming from, needs to be an immediate no-go. There's no reason for you to be like, well, let me just see. The moment you start trying to find someone who is your forever person or long-term person, you need to be looking for someone who knows how to show you value and respect from day one, from message one. End of story. If they don't, too bad. Be single and be safe, rather than completely physically or emotionally or mentally unsafe with a scumbag.
No, I blame the pick-me gene that I have, apparently, or whatever it is in there. So let me clarify something important that I feel like I need to tell you. If you want to find a partner, there is nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with not wanting to be lonely, with wanting somebody to share your life with. I hate when I am looking up, like, in my 30s and I'm single and lonely, and some bitch is telling me, I shouldn't say it like that. Some woman, some very helpful woman is telling me, you gotta love yourself yourself and you gotta date yourself. Blah, blah, blah. Self-love and self-improvement. Bitch, first of all, I'll have you know, I already love myself. And I know that's not everybody's journey, which is why
I have thoughts. No, you don't.
I'm making this video, because it's my journey. I'm tired of seeing videos of some woman telling me to love myself. I already love myself. Do you know how many baths I take? I don't know why I equate self-love with taking a bath. I know myself. I've put in the work with myself. I've changed a lot about who I am as a person and how I go through life because I was deeply unhappy with myself. Mostly not stemming from romantic issues, stemming from general loneliness, not having friends, having people not like me, always getting fired from jobs, just feeling like I wasn't worth it. Definitely not being picked romantically contributed, definitely 100%. Through that, I have found myself. I love myself. Obviously, I'm not perfect. I'm still growing, and I'll be growing until the day.
So she's growing in understanding what it means to, I would say, respect herself. I think respecting oneself is a better way to look at it, but yeah.
That I leave this planet.
I still have thoughts.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I am completely at peace with that, and I love it. I'm ready to have a partner. I'm ready. It's time. When I think about my long-term plans, they have a partner in them. I'm not trying to be one of these single bitches out here that's single for the rest of their life. I have no interest in that. I have a gut instinct that I am meant to find someone. And the reason why I said this video would make some people mad is because I'm sure somebody listened to this video and they probably heard someone who was picky and is probably just not accepting of dating experiences. That's not it. This is when I say that I have been unchosen, and please, if you have similar experiences, I need to hear them. I need to understand what's happening, because this can't be normal. I swear, when I see people and they get into groups, or they know people, or they go about their life and they're meeting people. I see people on dating apps and they're meeting people. I will say I don't have a lot of patience for dating apps. I wasn't always like that. It's just I haven't had really good experiences, or obviously
I hate online dating.
Just like they ghost everybody else. I've been stood up more than once by somebody that I was supposed to meet, where I lived 40 minutes away in the suburbs, and I drove all the way into the city to meet this person, and they stood me up and ghosted me. Never heard from them again. I have only experienced mutual attraction with someone where I liked them and they liked me. I was interested in them and they were interested in me once. They never became my boyfriend because it just never happened. Nothing ever progressed. I have been in situationships before. I was in a situationship with one guy for 2 years, and I met him online, and I was very surprised that we even ended up in a situationship. When I say I didn't like him, it was because he was a dick, and frankly, he was a bum. He love bombed me for the first.
I don't really know what the definition of a situationship is, but I know for darn sure that if you meet someone on an online dating app and 2 years later there's nothing official, they were a bum from day one, for sure. So, yeah.
First 3 days, and then he changed, and he never changed back, which means he took his mask off. It's really what happened. It's because he was a fucking Pisces. I feel like all my videos just meandered. I feel like I've lost the plot of why I wanted to make this video. I think when I originally came up with this video, I really just wanted to pull apart why it seems like it's so hard to find mutual attraction with someone. It feels like it shouldn't be that hard. It really shouldn't be that hard. I don't know why it's so hard when I like someone for them to like me. I'm gonna say this about the people who are interested in me. There's always a very solid reason why I'm not interested in them. But this concludes my video. Let me know what you think below. How do you feel when people tell you that you need to date yourself and that you need to learn self-love? Does that make you feel like, to me, it's like a gut punch. I'm like, bitch, I already love myself. Love myself more than anybody. Definitely gonna love myself more than any man. But I'm horny, okay? A bitch can...
That response says a lot too.
Be two things. A bitch can love herself and be horny at the same time, okay? I know, I live it every day. Anyway, but yes, please share your experiences below. Please share your experiences below. I want to know, how have you dealt with being unchosen? And what do you do to stay sane? That's what I want to know. How can I stay sane in all of this? Sorry, I feel like I kept sweeping my hair this way, but it's actually going... It don't matter, but let me know. Don't forget to like this video. Definitely hit the subscribe button to see more content.
Okay, so how I handled being unchosen, or there was 2 guys that were interested in dating me prior to my relationship, and I just felt like they weren't as interested in Christianity as I was at that time, so I just told them I wasn't interested in them. Was probably too blunt both times, probably didn't handle either time very well because I had no idea what I was doing. But other than that, being unchosen, how I handled that was entering into a traumatizing several year long relationship. So that's why when she was saying, I love myself, and I was like, no, you don't. I know that that was probably too quick of a response, but the type of people that you bring in to your orbit, especially in dating, say a lot about where you actually are on the inside. I thought that I was pretty secure and that I had excellent standards and that I knew how to find a healthy man. And I had no idea when I entered into that traumatizing relationship that I actually was very deeply insecure, that I was very inexperienced, that I had no idea about the nuances and complexities of mentalities and how that can drastically impact you for the rest of your life if you tie yourself to someone who is very damaging mentally. So I was just very blind to a lot of things. After that mercifully ended, and I had time to actually process, and I'm still learning to process what happened and what it meant, and how did I get there, and how did I respond poorly in that, and how can I respond better to life now. Obviously, I'm not in that anymore, but there's always going to be things in life that I have to figure out, how do I handle this better now than I did before. I came to realize loving yourself really means understanding what you're truly worth and understanding how to show that to another person, what they are truly worth. I was worth far more than someone who had a constant addiction. Now, the addiction had nothing to do with me, but it drastically impacted me. I was worth far more than someone who had very specific preferences for what someone looked like and who was very open with the fact that in certain ways, at certain times, I absolutely did not fit those preferences. I mean, of course, they tried to say it was okay to an extent, but there were other times where I was like, I'm not good enough. I'm absolutely not good enough. I was worth far more than that. The other person was worth more than my little arrogant butt rarely ever being able to apologize or not taking into consideration communication preferences that they had and just blundering forward constantly, ignoring a simple request that they would make. I had to learn a lot and grow in humility, both towards I need to change these things in myself to actually be a solid life partner, but also I need to recognize what I was ignoring in the other person so as not to continue ignoring red flags when I'm looking for a life partner. It's a very humbling experience. So when people come online and they say, I love myself, it's like, well, do you really? Or are you just, do you like to look at yourself as an absolute catch and maybe you're not willing to learn from your own mistakes or others' viewpoints of your weaknesses, how you actually need to learn and grow to actually really love yourself, if that makes sense. I hope I'm not rambling too much. Because once you have a much more solid, humble, wise, calm view of who you are and what you're worth, you will attract the type of people who will want that, and you will repel people who you can tell will not provide that. And sometimes it's even just little small things that you learn to pick up on, that it's like, that little small thing there would likely manifest in this bigger way here, and I'm not okay with that because I know that I would feel undervalued in that. Or that little small thing they did there means this hugely admirable trait is actually a massive part of their life because it showed in that little small area. And that admirable trait, which is something that I want in my lifelong partner, is so important that now I'm really interested in this person because they showed it in just that little small way. And I'm getting chills because I already can think about a situation where my husband did that, and that's what made me want to marry him. Yeah, so it's loving yourself is way more than just thinking that you're pretty and doing self-care. It's understanding your value, understanding other people's values, and understanding how to hone in on all the little signs to attract the right people to you, repel the wrong people respectfully, but still, they're not going to want to date you if they can tell, this person has some solid standards that are based in maturity and true confidence, not like self-protection and fear. Those people won't be interested in you. The guys that were in her life previously that were scumbags, I believe, could pick up on her desperation, her loneliness, her unwillingness to set firm boundaries, her willingness to kind of blur some lines. People can subconsciously pick up on that kind of thing. So I really think that she needs to grow in learning how to set respectful boundaries in an effort to respect herself and other people. And once she can grow more in that, I think that will help a lot. And I'm rambling a lot, so I'll stop. But yeah, it was a really interesting video. Hopefully I didn't come off too harsh or know it all because we're all still learning. But yeah, cool. Anyway, thanks for watching.